Hey everybody, I hope you're having an amazing day. My name is Mark Dolfini, and this is the Landlord Coach Daily-ish show. We're rocking it out here. Hope you are having an awesome day. And let's go ahead and get this thing kicked off, and let's go ahead and get started. Hey everybody, welcome to the Landlord Coach Daily Show. It's good to see you here. Got a couple really cool things to talk about today, and I'm going to try to do this a little bit quickly because I've got a bunch of projects I'm trying to finish up on, and then I'm heading to St. Louis tonight to see some good friends in a mastermind group, and then I've got my own mastermind for those of our coaching students who are going to be in the inner circle. And doing that on Saturday. So it's going to be a busy couple days. My bride will be joining me, so that'll be cool. It'll be great to have her on board with that. I got some really interesting things to share with you today. I know several people who have asked me about getting into rental properties. Does now make sense to get into rental properties? And I had a really good discussion last night with some people that, in terms of different tactics, different things they want to think about. Right now, there are markets that are normally have very, very high historical rents. Areas like New York City and LA and on both of the coasts. And right now, they are experiencing a very significant decline in rents, as much as in excess of 5% in some cases, and Washington D.C. and so forth. But there's other markets that are experiencing the opposite of that. They're actually smaller markets are experiencing as much as a 5% increase in rents, and that's rents since last month. So there's obviously different things going on in the market, and real estate, it's very local in nature. That's not a profound statement. Just real estate is that's just the nature of it. So if you see opportunities in markets where you can maybe sell on the way up, and cash out and reinvest in different markets that are on their way down. Maybe some people they need the cash, and you are there to help solve a problem for them. That's an opportunity. So what I want to talk about here is why borrowing money might make sense. Now, for those of you who know me, if you really know me, and this is probably going back maybe 10, 12 years. The sewer that I crawled out of back in 2008, 2009, and that was back when the real estate market had basically imploded, and I took it on the chin and took a freaking beating for the next 3 or 4 years while foreclosures were going on around me, and I was in the middle of all that. I was losing properties left and right, and a lot of it was related to the fact that I had over-leveraged. I didn't have enough cash on hand. I just was making I just made some just boneheaded mistakes. Now, mistakes that I don't think, looking back, I can understand why I was making those types of loans and why I was getting into the debt that I was getting into. But it's because I didn't understand the potential downside. I didn't understand the potential risks, and quite frankly, I don't think anybody thought it was going to be as bad as it was. So, I'm going to make a couple different arguments in terms of why it might make sense for you to get into debt now, if appropriate types of debt, if you're going to be buying rental property, why that might make sense for you. And also just a couple of different fees that you may not be aware of if it's been a while. And it's been a while since I got into the mortgage game, and I started looking at different things in terms of, does it make sense for me to get a personal mortgage versus a commercial mortgage, different things like that. So I'm not going to get into all that today, but I'm going to try to keep this fairly short, but I want to answer a couple of those different questions. First and foremost, in an inflationary environment, okay, which you will hear me say this, and I think it's going to become a conversation you're going to hear after the election. I don't think you're going to hear it before the election because, quite frankly, everyone else is adequately distracted. We're distracted by low fuel prices. We're distracted by the election. We're distracted by social unrest. We're distracted by all this other crap that's going on in the world. But we're not talking about inflation. And I'm telling you, inflation is going to be the thing that's going to define whatever president we have in the next 4 years. So I'm just letting you know that that's going to be a thing. That's my prediction, and I hope I'm wrong, but I don't see how it's not already here. And that's what's really frustrating me, that we're not talking about that, and that's not what's being reported on. But that's one of the things I want to talk about is if you're looking at the basket of goods of inflation, you might be saying, well, what's the big deal about inflation? Well, here's the problem. Inflation erodes your purchasing power, okay? It erodes your ability to buy, if you've got $1,000 worth of dollars today that buys $1,000 worth of goods, in a highly inflationary environment where you're talking in excess of 6, 7, 8, maybe even in 10%, that $1,000 doesn't buy as much now because now that same basket of goods costs $1,100, right? So you can only buy $1,000 worth of goods that normally that are in 12 months worth $1,100, right? So in a low inflationary environment where it's 2 or 3%, it's hard to notice, right? It's not. I mean, we all know prices go up. Where they either raise prices or they decrease quantities or whatever it is, but they make it so we don't really see it so much, right? But in a highly inflationary environment, it's hard to hide. Okay, so what they'll do is, they're gonna, they're gonna have to shift things around. But even no matter how much shifting and how much of a shell game it's going to be, it's still 10% of a good that's going to be that's being charged. It's hard to hide. It's hard to hide among all the stuff that's going on. So, does it make sense then to borrow money in an inflationary environment? I would say absolutely 100% yes. The reason for that, especially if you can get, only in particular with rates that are locked and on an amortizing loan. Okay, so if you can get a fixed rate on a long-term amortizing loan that's tied to an asset that's a hedge against inflation, vis-a-vis real estate, then that's a license to print money right there. Okay, so if you're buying rental real estate where you get into a long-term fixed rate of interest that is at historically low rates, then even if the real estate, the asset is a little bit more expensive than you want to pay, as long as the cash flow makes sense, which it should, right, if you're buying it right, then that makes sense because the cash flow will continue to climb because rents are a hedge against inflation. Rents will go up as inflation goes up. So, but you've got that asset at a fixed price, at a fixed rate. Okay. So let me explain this another way. If your amortizing loan is at $1,000, right? That $1,000 today is worth less than $1,000 12 months from now. But you're repaying the same dollar amount. You're paying in a nominal amount. You're not paying in real dollars. You're paying in nominal dollars, which means in 12 months, in 24 months, in 36 months, whatever it is, you're still paying the same mortgage rate or the same mortgage amount. Now, the only difference is obviously taxes and insurance would go up, so your mortgage payment would likely go up a little bit, but your principal and interest portion would stay the same. So that's why I would make an argument in a highly inflationary environment, which I believe that we are already in. It's just not being reported on yet. I believe that that type of debt, as it's tied to an income-producing asset, does make sense. The debt that's not good debt, that I would absolutely, I don't like it anyway, but I would definitely look to deleverage and get out of it if you're in it now, is variable debt, where you've got maybe a home equity loan that's tied to the prime rate, right? Or maybe LIBOR or something. Most home equity loans aren't tied to LIBOR, but that's the London Interbank Offer Rate. So if you've got a home equity loan that's tied to the prime rate, that's the rate that will go up and down. Okay, that's variable. Or if it's tied to the Treasury index, right? That's going to be variable, right? So if you want a fixed rate, if you're looking at a fixed rate, generally they're going to be looking at an amortizing loan. Okay, those are the loans that are safer. The loans that are not are the ones that are variable rates, because as inflation gets out of control, that's when interest rates are likely to kick up, and that's when money is going to become more expensive. Just to give this some comparison, okay? I had one of my students run this for me last night when we were on a call. So we were looking at a $100,000 amortizing loan, and you can do this yourself. $100,000 amortizing loan at 3.5%. I think that came out to about $450. Okay, back of the napkin math. You can do this on your own amortization calculator. So $100,000 over 30 years at 3.5% was like $450. Okay, whatever, that's fine. If you're looking at that same amount, that same $100,000 at the same terms of 30 years, but at 21.5% interest rate, the payment goes up to almost $1,800. Okay, why would you say, well, why would you use 21.5%? Because historically, back in 1983, I believe it was, the interest rates, the mortgage rates peaked at 21.5%. I think just shy of 21.5%. So money was really, really expensive, right? And it stayed in the teens, even in the mid-teens, for damn near 5 or 6 years. And it wasn't until, I believe, in the late 80s, early 90s when it started getting into single digits, okay? So we've experienced low inflation and very, very cheap money for almost a generation. So what I'm telling you is that things are going to be different. So if you can get into a fixed rate interest that's tied to an income producing asset now, again, the numbers have to work. So don't just go out and buy a bunch of crap and expect it to work. Because you're like, well, I said so. I'm just saying, do your analysis, make sure that the cash flow works. But if it's tied to an income producing asset and you're getting cheap debt, man, that can really set you up for success in the long term. Now, here's a couple things that I want to talk about in terms of fees that I just wasn't flat aware of because it's been a while since I bought a property, using an FHA loan or using a, right now I'm potentially looking at buying a property with a VA loan, okay? And the things that were not in place, if they were in place, I wasn't aware of it, but I don't think this started until the last few years. I don't think it actually started because until 2010. But the VA has a funding fee, which I wasn't aware of. Okay, if it's a first-time home buyer, and it's also tiered to how much down payment you're putting in. Okay, so there is some variation there. But if you're a first-time home buyer with a VA, it's a 2.3% funding fee, which is paid to the VA to help offset any potential for foreclosure. Right, so it makes sense that if you are putting less money down, that the funding fee would be higher, right? I get that. So if you actually have, I think if it's tiered, you can look this up. But if you're paying 5 or 10% or more down, I believe the funding fee goes down to like 1.3%, something like that. Okay, but you can find this out. But I just want you to be aware that there is a funding fee. Because it may require you, and I say may require you, every situation is different, it may require you to come to the table a little bit more money, or it may make your loan more expensive than you were planning on, right? So that could easily price you out of a property if you're not paying attention. So you got to know this stuff up front. The FHA funding fee is 2.25%. That's up front, and then there's an annual amount that they charge, I think, based on the outstanding loan balance. And I think you can actually get some of that back if you pay the loan off early. So just different things that you need to be aware of if you're looking to borrow money and the different funding fees that are out there. To really get in deep on this, if you are looking to buy a property, you can reach out to me. We can have a conversation, or get in front of a realtor. Get in front of a realtor that does this stuff all the time. Get in front of a banker that does this stuff all the time, and specifically a residential banker, somebody that does either a mortgage broker or a residential banker that does specifically residential mortgages, whether they're whether they're doing Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, whatever, VA type loans, whatever. These are people that generally you need to be in front of, so you can get smart on this and make sure that you're not trying to obligate yourself to a house or a loan that's not going to be affordable for you. All right, so that's all I have. Now that's all I have on that. Now some really cool news. Are you ready? That's right. So for those of you who are children of the 80s, okay, where are they? If I can see any hands out there. That's right. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is going on Airbnb. Can you imagine that? So you get to stay in the actual house that is the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air's, and I guess I think it comes with all the accoutrements that you would expect from an Airbnb property, and I don't know, I guess they do it right. So it looks pretty gorgeous. I wouldn't mind spending a day or two in that pool, but yeah, so it's pretty cool. The inside, I guess, is different because they shot all of the the TV show at a different location, but I don't know. I still think that's pretty cool. I don't know about you. I would think that'd be all right. But anyway, so that's all I have for today. Thanks so much for joining me today on the Landlord Coach Daily-ish show. I appreciate you spending the time. My name is Mark Dolfini, Landlord Coach. Please remember to place a value on your free time, because if you don't, someone else will. But most important, there is no amount of money that will make time irrelevant. Have a great rest of your day. I will see you next week, because I'm going to be off heading to St. Louis, so you won't see me the rest of the week. But have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next week. Have a great day. Take good care.